Hey everyone, John here from Gaming in the Wild with a brand new indie game release video for you all. It is May of 2026 and the year is really heating up this month. I have over 20 notable new indie releases to tell you about, from a vastly promising pixel art adventure to a mysterious moonlit tarot deck builder to a visceral narrative experience set within the horrors of World War I. And then after all the indie games, we'll have a quick run through some of the AA and AAA games that are coming out this month as well. But every month I get a couple of comments asking what my favourite games from the last month were, so I dipped into my account over at playtracker.net to take a look. Playtracker is a website that brings together your PlayStation, Xbox, Switch and Steam accounts and collates all your playtime and trophies in one place. I'm very happy to have them as a sponsor of this channel and I use it every month. It's a really easy, usable website that I check in on regularly, and this month it showed that Pragmata was the clear winner in terms of my playtime. I've just been loving that game's elegant systems and wonderful intricate level designs. I'm approaching the endgame now and I will review it when I hit credits for sure. In terms of indie games, Titanium Court was the clear winner as my most played game. It's the whimsical match 3 game that's also kind of a play about lost fairies in a magical realm. I actually interviewed the developer AP Thompson about making that game, so expect to see that on the channel soon. And as always, I was dipping into some new Balatro-inspired roguelikes. I played a lot of Cursed Words, which is vaguely based on Scrabble, and Gambonanza, which adds roguelike progression to a twisted version of chess. So that's what I've been playing, and if you would like to keep track of your own playtime, then get a Playtracker account. There's a link on the screen now. It's free to sign up, it's free to use, and in case you're privacy conscious, check out playtracker.net/privacy, where they say that they don't sell your personal data or anything hostile like that, which is always music to my ears. And if you do sign up, then add me as your first Playtracker friend. There is a link in the description for that. You can also support the channel with a like, with a subscribe, with sharing a video with a friend, or by joining the Patreon, more about which later. And with all of that said, let's get on with the video. First up this month is Wax Heads, which came out on the 5th of the month. It's a warm and heartfelt narrative game set in an independent record store that has perfect vibes. It was made by just 2 people, and Murray, who did the art, is a lover of independent record stores and music culture, and you can feel that oozing from the game. It's a story game with management sim elements because you have to get to know the clientele and help them find the right record for their taste, which can be simple if they know what they want, but if they don't, you'll need to do a bit of detective work. That includes checking out their badges, their tote bags, their t-shirts, the hints they offer on their clothing, or even their social media profiles. So the gameplay is a little bit of an admin game in the mold of Papers, Please, but with a warm, nostalgic vibe to match. I've played this one, I really enjoyed it. I'm hoping it finds its audience. It's a game that was made with a lot of talent and a lot of heart, so check it out on Steam and all the consoles on May 5th. That's Wax Heads. If you're in the mood for something a little bit more action-oriented, Dead as Disco hits early access on Steam also on the 5th. This game self-describes as a martial arts action game meets music video. It's a rhythm action brawler where music meets melee combat, but it's kind of got a new approach to the rhythm combat. Unlike games where you have to stay locked on rhythm to succeed, this game is a little more flexible, with what's happening on screen staying in rhythm even if you drift. So the stylish combat is always stylish even when you're not on the rhythm, and you get bonuses if you're dead on the beat, but I think that resolves some of the friction that I've felt playing straight up rhythm combat games, where you have to concentrate so hard that you forget to take it all in. And this is a game you'll want to take in, it looks great. You can see if Dead as Disco is your jam or not right now. There is a demo on Steam and it hits early access on the 5th. And from hyper-action rhythm to combat parkour, the next game is Motorslice, a compelling indie in which you explore an enormous industrial megastructure, clearing out hostile robots as you go. This involves wall running, power sliding, triple jumping, and using the titular Motorslice chainsaw to cut through walls and power yourself up to new heights. This game's vibe is flawless. There's something hypnotic about the sheer scale of the architecture, and the bosses are huge too. They're vast machines that you'll have to climb to defeat, giving a mechanized Shadow of the Colossus vibe to those confrontations. I played the demo of this one last summer in Next Fest and I was pretty impressed by it. I felt that the movement and the combat could be a little bit more fluid, so I'm hoping that some of those rough edges have been sanded off ahead of the full release, because there's nothing quite like this out there. And it was made by 2 Brazilian brothers, Leaky and Saki, so it's a small team game as well. That's Motorslice out on the 5th. Something with a much more sedate speed is Amberspire, a science fiction city builder with a lot of style and some unique gameplay flourishes too. Set on a remote moon under the glow of a gas giant, you'll be building, handling resources, and managing your population, but you'll have to do so in harmony with this interesting alien environment. This means navigating rust blooms and viscous plains and silica grasses to grow your city in synergy with the natural world around you. I think this attention to ecology is a huge relief, as these games normally just involve devastating the world to build more stuff, so it's really nice that this game seems to be more in tune with modern thinking about urban planning and nature and how we coexist with the world around us. And gameplay-wise, there is an element of strategic dice rolling here as well, where you roll for weather, for resources, for construction, and for story events. It also has a really lush soundtrack by UK experimental artist Nervous Test Pilot, so the vibes are completed by the music. This is a really promising game all round. I'm hoping it's a hit for both the developer Lunar Division and for the publisher Bithell Games, who've been hit with some financial difficulties lately. So support this one with a wishlist, or even pick it up when it comes out on May the 6th. That is Amberspire. We're getting 3 big indie releases on May the 7th, and the first one barely needs an introduction at this point. I've covered it in depth and repeatedly, and I even made it my most anticipated indie game of the year in my Indie Game Guide to 2026. So it's a game that I've been dying to finally get my hands on, and it's a shoe-in for my most hype release of the month. It is, of course, Mixtape, the second game from Artful Escape developers Beethoven and Dinosaur. It's a nostalgic 90s adventure with a magic realist twist. The trailers have shown skating, driving, exploration, a bit of a vibe from Life is Strange, and minigames that have references to classic coming-of-age films like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Wayne's World. It also has a stellar soundtrack, including music by The Cure, The Smashing Pumpkins, Susie and the Banshees, and more. And from what I've heard, people who've been hands-on with this game, like at the Melbourne Game Festival, I think it was, have spoken about it in glowing terms and said that it might be a Game of the Year contender. That said, I didn't get a review code for this one, which is getting kind of rare, and I haven't heard from anyone else who is reviewing it either, so I hope that everything is cool. Fingers crossed that it is the feel-good hit of the summer. That is Mixtape, coming to all the consoles and Steam on the 7th. Also on the 7th, we get another game that I've covered in detail over the last year. It's a busy month for indie games this month. It is Will Follow the Light, a moody first-person, story-focused game. I think the initial selling point of this one is that it has realistic sailing, where you can almost feel the sea spray on your face, and it has lonely exploration of small, wind-whipped islands in the far north. And it's also another addition to the burgeoning sad dad genre pioneered by games like BioShock and The Last of Us, and then continued by games like Under the Waves and Death Stranding. I'm excited to see the final version of this game. I played an early build that was very much a work in progress, but there's some real potential here. It hits a certain kind of mood that I feel really drawn to, and there's some poetry in being alone on the waves and among the rocks, forging your way forward. That is Will Follow the Light, coming to Steam, PS5 and Xbox on the 7th. And then finally on the 7th, Alabaster Dawn enters early access. This is the pixel art adventure from the developers of Crosscode that takes a little bit of 2D Zelda DNA but branches it in an exciting new direction. In this game, after awakening from a vault to find the world that you knew devastated by a strange infection, you travel this hazardous realm to figure out what's happening, to rebuild what's left of humanity into a new community, take down giant bosses where need be, and to renew this landscape. The demo of this game really blew me away. I wasn't expecting to like it, but the movement feels speedy and awesome. The combat is tight and strategic, and the setting is intriguing too. It's a little bit of Breath of the Wild, a little bit of Fallout. It is an early access release, so it will only have 10 hours of content. The final game will have 40 apparently, so it's about a quarter of the game, and the full thing will come out in 2027, or at least that's the release date that is penciled. So it's up to you if you want to support this developer now during production and dive into an early version, or wait for the full game and wait for it to reach its final form. Either way, don't skip this one. That's Alabaster Dawn. On the 11th, it's time for Besmirch, a gloomy farming sim that mixes distinctive crunchy visuals with farming gameplay in a weird little outback town. Arriving fresh off the train, you're quickly shown the ropes of rock breaking, seed planting and harvesting, all of the farming stuff that we expect. But the thing is, here you're trying to feed a starving population, and you're also told not to go out at night because that's when the bad things come out. So it has a different vibe and higher stakes than your average farming sim. In sharp contrast with the Stardew style interpretation of farming games, Besmirch is actually a foreboding horror tale. I certainly don't remember people dying if your crop didn't work out in Stardew. But I really like this new trend of farming games that question the format. I like that Wanderstop and Neverway question toxic productivity in a way that we've never seen before. So maybe we're seeing the birth of a new subgenre. Let's call it dark farming and see if that catches on. Hashtag dark farming. Experience all of this for yourself when Besmirch comes to Steam on the 11th of May. The horror continues on the 12th when we get first-person supernatural investigation game Call of the Elder Gods. It's an unexpected sequel to the 2020 narrative puzzle adventure Call of the Sea. This time you play as two protagonists flitting between them to solve puzzles that play out between different realms, our own world, and a darker place that lies beyond the veil. And a lot of games self-describe as Lovecraftian these days. It seems to be a genre that is really burgeoning in video games, and I'm glad that this eerie vibe is so popular, but this game seems more directly influenced than most. It's inspired by a specific H.P. Lovecraft story called The Shadow Out of Time, so hopefully this one goes beyond purple-clad sorcerers and Cthulhu tentacle monsters, and gets a little bit more into the metaphysical weirdness and eeriness that Lovecraft is all about. We'll get to find out when we explore the darkness when the Call of the Elder Gods lands on all the consoles and Steam on the 12th. I want to do a little circle back to a top-down road warrior game called RoadOut that I featured back in March in the Indie Game Guide then, but after I made the video, this game was kicked back to May 14th, so it's finally coming out now. I really like the look of it. It's a post-apocalyptic driving game with dungeons, community building, enemy factions, upgrades and more. A little bit like a top-down version of the Mad Max game that was so popular. I just wanted to give you a heads up that it's actually coming out. That's RoadOut. And then on the 14th, we get one of the more interesting games of the month. It is the Caribou Trail, a new game by Unreliable Narrators, the developers of Two Falls. That was an underrated story game that was about indigenous tribes in America, and this time the setting is in World War I, and once again the developers draw on historical documents and eyewitness accounts to add a welcome dash of groundedness and realism to their game. You play as a young man called Fisher who leaves his home in Newfoundland to join the British war effort with his friends, but as the game's store text says, what awaits him is not glory, but dirt, loss, and a touch of madness. A lot of the game will play out in the trenches of the Great War, and the dialogue and relationships will explore the conflicting philosophies and coping mechanisms of the three friends. They're all just trying to get through it, they're trying to process the horror that they are living through in different ways, and some of them, quite understandably, have a more tenuous and quickly eroding grip on reality than others. You know, I cover a lot of games in these videos, but this one really stands out to me as something that tackles big themes in an ambitious way, so support it with a wishlist if you can, maybe pick it up when it comes out. That's the Caribou Trail, coming to Steam and console on the 14th of the month. That brings us to the halfway point of this video, and I just want to take a moment to thank everybody who likes the videos, everyone who leaves a comment, and everyone who subscribes to my channel. It really means a lot, and it helps these videos rise up through the algorithm. And if you value what I do, I also invite you to hop onto the channel's Patreon. It can cost only $1 a month, which gets you access to our very cozy and welcoming Discord server. With social media basically on fire, I think it's a perfect little private, quiet place to talk about games with like-minded indie game fans away from all the noise. I also pick up a lot of tips in there, which I put into these videos, so you can contribute to the videos as well. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. If you join at the $5 tier, you will get a hand-picked indie game that I've chosen, that I've spoken to the developer, and I've gotten some codes for new patrons. And if you join at the $10 tier, you will get a shout out on every single video. So thanks to my boss tier patrons, King Champ, Susanna Maria, Drellesh, Reistic Studies, Nate, and Noah. In this mid-video intermission, I also want to bring the game Fame or Folly to your attention. It's a brilliant new deck builder in which you have to build a circus troupe to impress the lords and ladies of the land, but as well as wizards, minstrels, and bards, your troupe will also attract drunkards and thieves and pickpockets, so each hand is a balancing act where every card you pull might be the one that busts your hand and outrages the town. I've been playing this demo behind closed doors for a few weeks, and I firmly believe that it's the best deck builder since Balatro, so much so that I'm helping the developer Charlie spread the word about the game. So I've been shouting from the rooftops about this one, telling all my podcaster and YouTuber and game journalist friends to give it a try, and some of them did. SoManyGames.co.uk said said Fame or Folly is one of the best roguelike deck builders I've played in a while and could easily become as great as the likes of Beastro. The potential here is insane, end quote. So it's not just me, this game rocks, and if you'd like to go hands-on with it and try it yourself, the demo went public today as part of the Steam Deck Builder Fest. Link on the screen now to try out the demo so you can explore the first 4 decks right now, figure out some synergies and try and hone your perfect deck. If you do like it, please do wishlist it and help spread the word. I think if enough people hear about this solo dev indie game, it could turn into something really special. That's Fame or Folly, and with that, let's get on with the video. Something that always interests me about Steam fests like Next Fest is the games that take off the most and really catch fire with the Steam audience. And at the last Next Fest, Outbound stood out from the crowd in the most played games list as something very different from the usual hangout games, multiplayer shooters and co-op games and that kind of thing. It's a road trip camping game in which you drive your camper van around a colourful world and set up camp, go out, do some foraging and resource collection, and then enhance your van with new features. This starts off pretty small scale, like adding cabinets or a campfire outside or chairs and that kind of thing, but before long it becomes a kind of Mary Poppins camper van with a huge unfoldable structure that sits on top. It becomes like a giant house on wheels, so you have more and more space to build new stuff and improve your van even further. And as someone who's done my fair share of camper van trips around the wild coastline of Iceland where I live, it's a compelling fantasy to have both the freedom to camp anywhere and keep the comforts of home. So I totally get the appeal of this one. That's Outbound. Get on board when it comes out on Steam and all the consoles, including Switch, on the 14th of the month. Also on the 14th is Enter the Chronosphere, a top-down action game that mixes a little bit of Hades and a lot of Super Hot. It's a bullet hell roguelike with a top-down perspective, and in this game, time only moves when you do, which really sets it apart from the crowd, I think. This leads to an unusually purposeful and strategic take on this kind of gameplay, which is a lot of swashbuckling action most of the time. I'm also quite into its cool, psychedelic sci-fi visual style that looks like film posters and sci-fi artwork from the 60s and 70s. There is a demo out now if you would like to dip a toe into the waters of time, and if you like it, you can be part of early access and help shape the game when it launches on the 14th. That's Enter the Chronosphere. Then on the 20th we get Phonopolis, an intriguing story-driven puzzle adventure set in a 3D world made of cardboard. Phonopolis is the name of the city in which the game is set, and it's always in a process of being built by its hard-working populace, which starts off seeming quite utopian but ends up being anything but. Everything changes one day when the game's protagonist decides to start questioning this idyllic vision which is driving towards a troubled, brainwashing monoculture. And much like 1984 and the film Brazil, if you question things too much in this place, you'll find yourself on the wrong side of authoritarianism. Not that it has a right side, to be honest. So this game has a lot going for it. There's the art style, which is inspired by avant-garde art of the last century, in which everything you see on screen was made from actual cardboard that was scanned into the game. This was then animated at a glorious 12 FPS for a classic stop-motion look. I wonder what Digital Foundry will make of that. And then there's the 1984-esque political consciousness aspect of the game about having the courage, empathy, and imagination to think freely in a world that pushes you to do anything but. That's a valuable message for the times that we live in for sure, and that is Phonopolis, coming to Steam on May 20th. A couple of updates on games that I've talked about already recently. Beastro got a May the 21st release date. I talked about it more in my last video, link on the screen now for that. So check out Beastro on the 21st, and then I've also talked plenty about Zero Parades, the first game to emerge from the flaming wreckage of Zautum, the studio that was behind the creation of Disco Elysium, but they famously fired most of the minds behind that game. Hardly anyone is there who worked on Disco Elysium at this point, and my first impression is that this is a disco-like that looks the part but doesn't smell quite right. The opening scene reuses some of the mechanics and motifs of disco, but with a lot less wit and dexterity than disco. But hey, who knows, I could be way off base here. I'll be curious to see where the critics come down on this one, and who knows, maybe it is the real deal and I just have the wrong impression of it. That's Zero Parades, out on the 21st. The 21st also sees the release of Coffee Talk Tokyo, a sequel to the fan-favourite visual novel. This time, the fantasy barista action has moved from the cozy, rainy climes of a Seattle-like city to the hyper-urban excitement and energy of inner-city Tokyo. I enjoyed the first Coffee Talk a lot as a chill evening game. There was a really nice rhythm to it, where you open the store and then people come in, you get to know them over time, you mix drinks to ease their woes, and then they slowly open up to you, then they get to know each other, and the whole story plays out. It's just a very peaceful game and something to play to calm down at the end of the day. Like if you read a book before bed, then it could be the kind of game that fills that spot. That's Coffee Talk Tokyo out on the 21st. And then on the 22nd, we get Bubsy 4D, a game that is so self-aware I can't tell if it's an IP troll trading on the well-known crimes of the Bubsy series, or if it's an earnest attempt to make a new killer 3D platformer in 2026. It's even hard to tell after messing around with the demo a little bit. I found that this iteration of Bubsy has a really versatile moveset, but it has plenty of rough edges as well. I'll be very curious to see what 3D platformer experts, heads, and critics think of this one. It's coming to all the consoles and Steam, and who knows about that game, honestly. That's Bubsy 4D on the 22nd. And then on the 25th, we get Paralives, an ambitious Sims-like life sim that was delayed into 2026 last summer. This game has a pretty interesting story. It's being made by a studio that grew out of an uncommonly successful Patreon that has 25,000 supporters, providing a total of $45,000 a month. Must be nice. My Patreon has 200 members and $400 a month. Link on the screen now if you'd like to hop in and grow that number. But a quick Google shows that this has created kind of a fractious community, which I think sometimes happens with these Patreon Kickstarter type things. There are a lot of people over on Reddit worrying or complaining about the shape the game is taking, although I mean, that's Reddit for you. But life sim games of this type are infamously difficult to make, with complex webs of possibilities spiraling out from every little decision, and the team are definitely grappling with that. Recent Patreon updates trumpet improvements to vandalism and pregnancies, for example, which is pretty funny updates to get. So, you know, the life sim genre is a bold one to take on for an indie team, and who knows where the fate of Paralives will land in the end. It really does feel like world-conquering phenomenon and unmitigated disaster are equally possible outcomes right now for this game. I'll just say good luck to the team. I hope it's everything the patrons want. That's Paralives out on the 25th. There are only 4 games left to go in this epic month of indie games. This is really a stacked month. I feel like these videos don't normally break 20 minutes, but here we are. On the 26th, we get Life Below, a twist on the city builder genre, which mixes building and expansion mechanics with a dreamy marine setting. And much like Amberspire that I talked about earlier, this is another city builder type game that has eco-conscious gameplay mechanics, and this one has a heartfelt story written by Rhianna Pratchett. I had my suspicions, and yes, I googled it. She is the daughter of Terry Pratchett, and she was also a writer on Mirror's Edge and various latter-day Tomb Raider games. It's kind of an interesting mix. You don't normally hear about stories in relation to city builders, but that's Life Below coming out on the 26th. On the 27th, we get Wandering Sword, and if you're looking at the visuals for this one right now, you might see that it's quite clearly indebted to the 2D HD look of games like Octopath Traveler, so much so that you could almost mistake it for a game from that series, but this one tries to distinguish itself with martial arts-inspired combat and a scenario inspired by China's history. It also has only a 20-hour runtime, which I think is a big bonus in this genre actually. These games sometimes go on forever. That's Wandering Sword out on the 27th. And then on the 28th, we get probably the most interesting deck builder of the month. It's a dreamy card game with a tile placement element replacing the Slay the Spire style energy system. You know, in most card games, each card has a cost to play and you have to manage your energy and how many cards you can play in any given turn. In this game, that system is reworked entirely because each card has a geometric shape on it that slots into an on-screen grid, and you can play as many cards as will fit, and then when it's full, it's full. So that seems like a really interesting way of creating synergies by putting together this kind of card-related jigsaw with complementary effects and so forth. And I have to say, I really love the clean but mystical iconography they came up with for this game and the cards. It mixes together crisp astronomical constellation diagrams with a more astrological tarot divining deck kind of feel. I'll be playing this one for sure. It has a demo as well. That's Moonsigil Atlas out on the 28th. And then finally, also on the 28th, we get the game with the longest name in this video, and perhaps any video that I've made. It is the remake of the end of the greatest RPG of all time. Quite a mouthful, but it's a very meta puzzle game set in the last hour of an imagined, lost, or non-existent RPG. You need to navigate the source material around this game, which includes video, the actual game, the manual, the director's commentary, hidden iconography inside the graphics, and that kind of thing. You will then use all of that material to try and deduce how the game functions and what deeper secrets are contained within. It seems like the kind of game that might appeal to people who like the Golden Idol games or Tunic or Inscription or that kind of thing, and it has cult hit written all over it, so who knows, it could be one of the dark horses of 2026. It's coming out on Steam on the 28th of the month. That is, of course, the remake of the end of the greatest RPG of all time. And that's it for the indie game, so let's round out the video with a look at the AA and AAA games that are coming out later this month. I only have 5 games for you this month in the AA and AAA section. On the 12th of the month, Directive 8020 is coming out. It's the 5th game in the Dark Pictures series from Supermassive Games, the team behind Until Dawn and The Quarry. Like all of the games that Supermassive makes, it will focus on branching plot lines and QTEs, unfortunately, one of my great gaming pet hates, to be honest with you. I personally find QTEs to be quite a cheap form of adding interactivity, and I wish they didn't exist. That said, it does have an interesting scenario that's a bit like The Thing in space, with an alien organism on your ship that can mimic the human form. And I know that a lot of people out there enjoy the Dark Pictures series, so I hope you enjoy Directive 8020 on the 12th. On the 14th, it's a really big one actually, Subnautica 2 will enter early access. This one has been a troubled production that's seen senior figures messily fired and then hired again by publisher Krafton. There's some good reporting on this one. Krafton actually accused senior figures of abandoning ship on Subnautica 2 to pursue personal projects. That was struck down in court, the CEO was reinstated, and Krafton was removed as the publisher of this game on the Steam page. So that's a huge mess, and none of that will have helped the game's already fraught and lengthy production, so here's hoping that it's in good shape when it comes out. As for what Subnautica is, I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a first-person underwater adventure that is all about the mysteries of the deep sea. I've played about an hour of the original Subnautica and then a few hours more of Below Zero. There was a bit too much foraging and upgrading and busy work to really hold my attention, but I know a lot of people love it, so that's Subnautica 2, entering into early access on PC and Xbox on the 14th. On the 19th is a game that I'm actually really looking forward to. It is Forza Horizon 6 on the Xbox. I fired up Forza Horizon 5, not really sure what to expect, but I was a little bit, I was feeling the FOMO, so I gave it a try, and it actually turned out to be a pretty fantastic game. The thing that I like about this formula is that it's not just about racing. There are jumps, there is exploration, there are little side quests and story missions. You get new cars all of the time and you can drive them all around this world. There is even like a combo meter for just doing normal things like skidding around corners as you explore. There are boards all over the map that you can break and a completionist streak to try and get them all. The last game was set in Mexico and it was kind of amazing. You're racing down the side of an active volcano in a beach buggy flying off of cliffs and stuff. And this one is set in Japan, so I can't wait for that one. It's Forza Horizon 6 on the 19th. On the 21st, we get Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which seems to be kind of a minor Nintendo game. It's one of those ones that seems to me to be more on the scale of Toad's Treasure Tracker or Peach's Showtime game. That's Yoshi and the Mysterious Book on the 21st. And then on the 27th, it's time for 007 First Light, probably the biggest AAA game of the month. This one comes from the Hitman team, and it's a more action-focused thing that still focuses on a little bit of espionage, on stealth, on being a spy. So I think it's going to be a spin on the Hitman formula where you play as 007, there's a strong narrative to it all, and you can also maybe go loud more than you traditionally would like to in a Hitman game. There have been a few alarm bells as people that played the previews weren't entirely into it, and it feels a bit like 007 and James Bond is a franchise that is past its prime, but I hope it's good. It's never fun to see a AAA game crash. That's 007 First Light coming out on the 27th. And that brings us to the end of maybe my longest month ahead video ever. There's something about May, man. May is always a stacked month. Thanks very much for watching, and there's a lot more to look forward to on the channel. I've got an interview coming up with the designer of Titanium Court, AP Thompson. I have reviews of Replaced, Dosa Divas, and Pragmata, so subscribe and stay tuned for all of that. And until the next one, take care of yourselves and each other, and bye-bye for now.